Hello and welcome to CGTN special program, China-ASEAN Embracing a Safe and Shared Future. Both China and ASEAN are vibrant economies that cherish partnership and cooperation. Recently, the two celebrated the second anniversary of their comprehensive strategic partnership. China and ASEAN economies are also deeply linked through culture and history. At a time when the world is looking for solutions to some of the most challenging issues, people from China and ASEAN countries are rediscovering the strength and wisdom from their heritage and history and offer inspirations to the world. Today, CGTN invites scholars from China and ASEAN countries to have a thorough discussion about how we can work together toward a safe and shared future.
Cultural heritage and history are China and ASEAN's shared legacy, the bedrock of peace and security.
It's not just one-way investment from China going to Southeast Asia. We are trying to build a community with a shared future.
Because of that, China leadership at this point of time, especially as the world is at a crossroad, is become more important for us to have a shared future.
Decades of partnership bodes well for stability, a great environment for cooperation and common prosperity. Catch CGTN's special program, China-ASEAN, Embracing a Safe and Shared Future.
Bridges understanding, mutual understanding between countries. The people interaction, people-to-people ties are more stronger.
We're innovative, but we also appreciate the past. We also understand the history between us and that we want to grow on both of those aspects.
Yo mama, jangan mama parah beta.
Wow.
Dia cuma pegang beta.
I'm so glad to be joined here in the studio by Anna Wui, who is coming from the Philippines, Nina Saifu coming from Brunei, and Xie Kankan from China. Good to see the three of you here in the studio. Also joining us, we have a very strong panel coming from so many different countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Nice to see all of you. It's so wonderful that we would have the opportunity to sit down and talk about the beautiful relations between China and ASEAN. You are all coming from different countries in the ASEAN region. Tell me more, what do you see as the most important links that bringing us together?
I'm from Brunei. So from Brunei, I think one huge aspect is the cultural exchange. And at that cultural exchange, especially in youth programs, I myself underwent that. I think that embracing the different mutual understandings of what China has to offer from the heritage perspective and even the language is such a huge connection that ASEAN and China can have together.
I see. What about for you?
Yes, I think what is making us connected from ASEAN countries, Southeast Asian countries and China, I think is one of that would be people-to-people relations, which are very dynamic between the two sides. And I think one important aspect to that is economic trade and investment. I think the economic relationship between China and ASEAN is one of the vibrant. And as you can see, ASEAN and China are trading partners. I think ASEAN #1 trading partner at this time is China. So I think that makes the relationship of the two sides more robust and strong, and that makes us connected as well. Because at the end of the day, economics is very important. I think that's one factor and that's one aspect.
I see. What about for you, Kankan?
For me, I think the key word is proximity. It's not just proximity in terms of geography, but also proximity in terms of culture and economics. Yep.
Culture and economics.
Yep.
I see. We have also a strong panel online with us coming from Myanmar, Cambodia, Singapore, Laos, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, from all over Southeast Asian countries. So tell us more about what you think is linking us together. Coming from Myanmar.
Yeah, Myanmar is next door neighbor to China. And we are obviously, just like ASEAN, China is our largest trading partner, right? A lot of our agricultural and primary products are sold to China, right? Obviously, in terms of peace and stability, it's a huge implication for trade. So this forum comes right at the right time, promoting peace and stability between the China as well as between the China and the ASEAN neighbors.
Thank you. trade that's making peace happen. Once again, you focus on trade. From Cambodia, Savinda.
Well, I think the links that bind China and Southeast Asia together are actually quite comprehensive. If you take a look at culture, economics, politics, common security, all of these issues are actually binding the region and China together. It's quite actually comprehensive. You haven't, technically, if you take a look at the comprehensive relationship between the two regions, China and Southeast Asia, you will see that nothing that breaks the link. It's actually links at every dimension. So I would say it's very, very comprehensive, economic security and many other issues as well.
Deeply intertwined in all fronts. Thank you. And Kiwi coming from Singapore.
First and foremost, we're all human beings. We need to pay the rent, we need to survive, we need to eat. So first and foremost is business. What brought us all together? Business. And from there onwards, culture, travel, but mainly it's first and foremost business, profit. I think that human beings, we do that.
Trade makes the world go around and make
right.
us know each other better. Thank you.
Right. So I think Indonesia is the most evident one where, cooperation between Indonesia and China has been transforming the country towards just different phase. Anyone coming to Jakarta now will enjoy the first ever high-speed train that connecting Jakarta to Bandung, the second city in Western Java. And that is the first in Southeast Asia, where you can enjoy 350 kilometers per hour, riding high-speed train to connect two cities.
All right. Go to you in Malaysia, Kiam Yang.
I think the key word for me would be investments. We see a lot of investments coming from China to the region, including in Malaysia. And during my time as Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry in Malaysia, I visited China 6 times in the span of 20 months to attract more Chinese investments to come to Malaysia. And I believe this trend will continue.
All right, thanks. From Thailand, Lee.
Yeah, I think Thailand and China have many similars. Even the cultures are very similar. So I think all the trading or the economy or the import-export, something like this, I think is based on culture. So the culture exchange, I think, is more important.
Okay, Lee believes culture is the key. Sulipong, tell me your thoughts.
As you know, Laos and China have a big project together as a One Belt, One Road and many agriculture projects. It means trade and business is linked us together.
Thank you very much. I think we almost have a survey of our friends coming from ASEAN and China to talk about what they focus on the most. In fact, everybody would agree trade seemed to be the key. And then cultural links through history, through interactions, through travel. And of course, China and ASEAN has been enjoying this comprehensive links in all fronts, as our friend from Cambodia beautifully illustrated. So if we all agree that trade is one of the most important areas, let's talk about trade. So go to you, Anna. You have been doing research on geopolitical and the geoeconomics, especially the relations between the two. Now, what do you see as the role of trade that would help us to maintain peace in this region?
I think that's a very interesting question, because if you look at trade, and especially between ASEAN countries and China, trade is something that facilitates peace and stability in the region, precisely because the more you trade with each other, the more countries trade with each other, the more that relationship are connected, mutual understanding is there, and also kind of differences are also bridged because of trade, because you have more interaction. So that's very important. And I think mechanism in ASEAN and China that can help facilitate this is the RCEP, or the regional RCEP, which is now new, and I think it's a ASEAN-led kind of trade pact. So the more this trade pact will continue to evolve, and I think the more that the prospect for peace and security in the region is assured. And I hope, that this will happen, because, there is no such thing as economic development, economic prosperity there is no peace. So we need peace for us, countries like ASEAN countries and China, to be economically prosperous. You need peace. And this kind of mechanism is very important.
We also hear many others who have been talking about trade. Tiang Ming, would you like to say something about that?
A couple of points. Firstly, ASEAN is in a good place because we are friends to everyone. We want to be friends with China, with the Americans, with the Europeans, with the Japanese, with the Koreans. So as there are other global and political uncertainties in other parts of the world, ASEAN will be seen as a beacon of stability. That's one. Second thing, within the midst of this stability, we are actually able to do more business within ASEAN with China as well. So for example, if there's going to be nickel mining for EV batteries in Indonesia, some of that processing eventually may end up in Malaysia and it may be exported out of Singapore. So these kinds of linkages within the midst of stability is very important for trade and investment.
So you are saying, in fact, as we go with uncertainties in different parts of the world, China and ASEAN are more developing our own supply chains and value chains in order to back each other up. And of course, for each other's benefits too.
Exactly, and not only that, I think this is also for the benefit of other companies from Europe, from the US that wants to have these strong linkages with China within the context of ASEAN countries.
What role has infrastructure played? That's always a enticing question, because we know at this point there are different kinds of infrastructure mechanisms in the world that are all focusing on the ASEAN region or Asia Pacific. So what have been the chemistry between China and ASEAN in infrastructure? How is that supporting and also complementing the trade and investment that all of you has been enthusiastic about? Let me have here Anna.
And when it comes to infrastructure development, especially for ASEAN countries, especially the least developed countries, even my country, the Philippines, the right combination, the right chemistry between China and ASEAN countries is there through the BRI, and even funding and investment coming from China. As you can see, my country benefited a lot from China's investment when you talk about infrastructure. And infrastructure is very much needed in countries like, for example, building roads, bridges, and all of this. Because the more connected a country, the more trade and investment comes into the country and the more the country develops. And I think China is helping a lot ASEAN countries in that matter.
But we have also seen that China has been transforming the different stages from one stage to another in terms of, for example, Belt and Road Initiative. Earlier, there have been enormous amount of financial investment into infrastructure building and into infrastructure cooperation. But now we have seen that it is coming to a new stage of infrastructure, which is more green, focusing on green, on the quality, and also on the sustainability. So how do you see this transformation? And meanwhile, as we all know, that economies around the world are struggling with cash. Therefore, building infrastructure requires enormous amount of investment. So whether China, as the largest developing country in the world, be able to continuously put in financial support, or there's likely to be a combination of different skill sets, soft and hard, so that to support our neighbors' economies and to have win-win cooperation.
Yes, of course. I think China has experienced a lot of transformation in the past 30, 40 years. So is the world. So are the ASEAN countries. So, of course, when we first started this Belt and Road Initiative, a lot of emphasis have been on the direct investment, direct construction of infrastructures. But then I think in the recent years, we have to switch our focus to high-quality development, more sustainable development. And also, we have to look at the long-term kind of development goals of the entire region and the entire world.
Many of you, earlier in our survey, at the very beginning of our discussion, also focused on culture, education, history. Now, I don't want to just talk about them generally, but rather, may I have the honor to go to you for your explanation about your culture and why is it so important when you say China and ASEAN. Sitting with us, of course, we would love to have already Nina to explain to us. You're coming from Brunei.
There is one, which is language. Obviously, Chinese, different types of Chinese language, which is either Cantonese, Mandarin, Hokkien. They permeate throughout different countries in Southeast Asia. There's culinary. I think that food is a language that everyone speaks. There are so many different cuisines that are influenced. When I came to China 3 years ago, I remember trying Yunnan cuisine and finding so many similarities with my own culture. And
Kankan is from Yunnan, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You must follow up on what your colleague just said, but please go ahead. Go ahead.
And I remember that there was Songkran is a kind of festival, that water festival that a lot of different cultures in Southeast Asia celebrate, and I believe that there is a very similar kind of celebration that exists in one of the ethnic groups in China. So just these kind of aspects that is appreciated between the two regions. I think that's a very beautiful kind of relationship, even with its alongside the innovative development and economic and trade relationship.
Finding something similar to home is always rewarding when you are traveling. And it is not limited to that, right? It's about why also to trace back the kind of links and chemistries between our culture, among our cultures. Kankan.
Growing up, I think I had already a lot of taste of Southeast Asia. We had coffee and fruit from Vietnam. We watch Thai movies and TV dramas. And also, after college, I started to learn Indonesian language. So then I realized Indonesian songs are all over. Like popular songs like Ayo Mama and Bengawan Solo are all popular in China back in the 50s and 60s. So, of course...
Do you still sing it?
Well, my mom can sing it better.
I can sing if you wish.
Oh, yeah? Who is that?
Ibrahim, maybe.
Ibrahim, okay. Maybe I should have you and also Kankan to sing a duet.
Okay. Ayo mama, jangan marah
Marah beta.
Go ahead. Yeah, please do. Go ahead. Ibrahim, can you do a better job than Kankan? He's disappointing me.
Yeah, I can sing it if you wish. So
yeah, maybe some arias. I can also join you to learn.
Yeah.
Yo mama, jangan mama marah beta.
Wow.
Dia cuma pegang beta. So something like that.
Very nice. Thank you so much, gentlemen. What I want to do is just maybe relax a little bit from the talks of politics and economics, but also, to show our audience that what we are talking about here is not empty talk.
Yeah.
But that is only one aspect of what we talk about in terms of cultural links, entertainment and music.
Yeah.
But it's much more than that.
Yeah. We say that people-to-people interaction, people-to-people ties are more stronger. And the more stronger the people-to-people ties, I think the state-to-state level of relationship would have a good foundation. So all of this kind of cultural interaction, may it be food, movies, songs, and many others, even language is very important. I think it bridges understanding, mutual understanding between countries, especially those countries that sometimes they have some kind of, misunderstanding.
But culture is not just tools for politics.
No, yes, of course.
Culture is something that should be itself very much respected by all of us.
Yes, I would agree.
And cherished as well.
Yes.
Let me ask you back, Nina, because in fact, you run an association of scholars from Southeast Asia.
Yes.
And tell us, how do you see that kind of cultural interactions taking place, both in your classroom and also beyond?
I think tourism plays such a huge aspect of the cultural exchange. So as a student, one of the very, very obvious things that we do in programs was traveling around China. in these areas that we traveled, that was where I really understood the different kind of cultures that existed in China. So I think that's like one very, very obvious experience that as a student that they can go through, especially not just in the cultural exchange, but educational program and youth exchange programs that China does with ASEAN.
Apart from guests joining us today, we also have some other distinguished guests sending their messages about China-ASEAN relations.
All the neighboring countries in ASEAN are the partnering nations of BRI. And so far, we all know that BRI turns out to be the most successful model of economic cooperation, not just across Asia Pacific, but even across the world.
Actually, majority of the Filipinos have Chinese friends, have Chinese products that have improved their welfare of their living standards. Many of the Chinese brands are coming into the Philippines and are doing well and are being welcomed by the people.
What China was saying is matching what it is doing. And that's very important, this consistency of ideas, expressed and the actions that are following.
The one including the Global Security Initiative, or GSI, that China and President Xi has, supported is very essential to promote the regional peace and also the global development.
The world is changing very fast. The center of gravity of the new world order is shifting from the West to Asia.
Cultural heritage and history are China and ASEAN's shared legacy, the bedrock of peace and security.
It's not just one-way investment from China going to Southeast Asia. We are trying to build a community with a shared future.
Because of that, China leadership at this point in time, especially as the world is at crossroads, is become more important for us to have a shared future.
Decades of partnership bodes well for stability, a great environment for cooperation and common prosperity. Catch CGTN's special program, China-ASEAN, embracing a safe and shared future.
Bridges understanding, mutual understanding between countries. The people interaction, people-to-people ties are more stronger.
We're innovative, but we also appreciate the past. We also understand the history between us and that we want to grow on both of those aspects.
Yo mama, jangan mama marah beta.
Wow.
Dia cuma pegang beta.
And Ban, I know you are online. Would you like to also say something about culture?
Culture is something which basically is people to people. And this is something that's, I think, necessary in addition to government, which is important, as well as economy to economy, which is obviously vital. So I think together, the culture with economy and government relations comprise this full integration of our region. In order to make relations really complete. They're all complementary. And in the case of Malaysia, I would also add that it's not just schools with mother tongue Chinese and Mandarin that are quite common, but also all the media every day and night. Print and broadcast media are in several languages, including in Chinese Mandarin. So this is something which has been there for a long time. And we have to also recognize that in our region of East Asia, there is great diversity, especially Southeast Asia. But despite the diversity, there are common strands that are very important culturally across the different communities. And I think what needs to be done, not enough work has been done at different levels in identifying the commonalities among our cultures, because we do share similarities, correspondences and so on, in our values, and in our ways of doing things, in our outlooks, which I think have not been recognized sufficiently.
Similar civilizations and cultures will make these countries move forward in their cooperation and affiliation. I think that East Asian civilizations also have something that we should be proud of, and we should promote similar civilization. And it will be considered as the glue to connect China and other countries with similar cultures, and we can see like civilization affinity together, and it can be considered as the foundation, and it can be considered as some kind of the bonding among the countries together. I think that it should the values that we need to tap into to elevate our cooperation to a new height.
What you have touched on is a very interesting issue. I do want to bring it up with all of you, that many of us have been educated in a Western environment, and many of us have also been traveling around the world widely, given the sophistication of your answers already. But at the same time, now when we look around, actually there's tremendous amount of charm in our neighborhood. That kind of realization is kind of exciting. I don't know how you are digesting this.
Yeah, you're right, because I spent a lot of my early years in the West. So of course, once I'm there, I assimilate their culture. But now I've been in Singapore and in the East for so many years, I'm beginning to appreciate my Asian culture. And you're perfectly right.
What part of that culture now you are currently appreciating the most?
Well, I suppose the food, the behavior, the values, which actually I find that actually all human societies, the values are basically almost the same. I mean, like doing good and all that. I mean, these are all fundamental values, and all societies, all the world teach. Just that, when I was blinkered in maybe in the Western system, I thought that the East looked at it differently. But then when I'm back, I say, no, it's not different. The East, the Western, they are all the same, basically. Don't let the policymakers distract you. We are basically the same.
China's spirit is always so distinctive in Indonesia in many, many areas. So cities or areas where there are, Chinatown or China business district on it, usually they are more advanced compared to, region in Indonesia without densely populated Chinese Indonesian. So we always think that, having blood of China, Chinese Indonesian, are usually good at school, good in business, good in, developing their mindset, competitiveness. So something beyond food, beyond clothes, beyond, beautiful songs, something like, characteristics that everybody can look up to. Of course, we can learn from 1998 condition in Indonesia, but apart from that, I think there are a lot that we can learn from China. Even we just learned that the first Islamic circulation in Indonesia was brought by Chinese coming in. We call it, as Malaysian folks maybe know, Wali Songo, or we call it Nine Saints. Some of them have Chinese blood inside of them. So we are grateful from China, or not only from the history, not only from the economic progress, but also from culture, who bring a lot inside of the country due to, everything from culture, from food, from mindset, from discipline, from competitiveness, even from, circulating religion, all the way through Indonesia.
How much can we contribute, not only to ourselves, but also to the rest of the world in terms of ideas, in terms of way of thinking? I'm not saying that we are exporting values. I'm just saying that how much that we have can be of reference to the others, that others could also try to take advantage of, quote unquote.
I think Bandung spirit is very important, which can be traced back to 1955, when Asian and Afro countries held a very big conference in Bandung, Indonesia, where people discuss the common future shared by Asian, African, and Latin American countries in the future. So basically, at that moment, these countries are trying to escape the systemic constraints imposed by the bipolar kind of world order led by the US and USSR. And the Asian African countries succeeded in creating the mechanism, talking to each other, respect each other's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and also adopt the idea of non-aggression. So that also became part of China's foreign policy principle, which is peaceful coexistence, right? So I think when we look back, we actually already have very brilliant ideas that help us walk all the way to where we are today. And then we're not saying, oh, we are trying to export Asian value again, because there are certain things that we share together and we recognize it as common sense. Or at least it's a very common practical throughout the region. So in that sense, I would bring up Bandung spirit again.
The most important aspect of the Bandung spirit that actually the world has to embrace, given that there are a lot of conflicts right now. You have the Israel and Palestinian conflict, and even you have the Ukraine conflict, and even in our own region, Southeast Asia, and China, you have the South China Sea dispute. All of this is all about respect of one's own territory and sovereignty, and also trying to resolve dispute through negotiation and peaceful means. And I think that is the Bandung spirit that everyone in Asia should at least embrace.
What about ideas these days? We have seen leaders, both from China and also from the region, have been raising up suggestions and ideas for the world as a contribution. So what about the latest development?
In terms of latest of development right now, I'll be more speaking about the fourth industrial revolution. I think that's one, especially when you talk about technology, like artificial intelligence. I think these are new things that is coming out, and it becomes a concern. It's both a concern and at the same time a positive contribution to society, because if you look at artificial intelligence, it has a lot of advantages when you talk about many aspects of the economy, the business, investment, and even environment, and even taking care of elder people. But at the same time, there are also concerns that needs to be looked at, especially when you talk about safety and the danger that it replaces human beings, for that matter, and labor displacement. I think this is one of the most revolutionary ideas and things that is happening in the world right now. And I think China is leading the way on this aspect. So I think that's what I can see, the most revolutionary idea.
If I understand what you're trying to say, you seem to mention 3 initiatives that we are seeing these days: Global Development Initiative, Global AI Initiative, and of course, the Global Security Initiative. How much do you see these ideas might be contributing to the world market of ideas in terms of helping us to look for inspirations? Savinda?
Yeah, I want to say is that the 3 Chinese global initiatives, Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative, all of these 3 initiatives are very important. If you take a look very carefully, for example, Global Development Initiative is more about a new way of looking at how we can develop our country by taking in various development experiences, not just from the Western world, but also from other developed non-Western worlds as well. If you take a look at the Global Security Initiative, one way to ensure world peace is to, respect the different needs of various developing countries, and pretty much goes the same with the Global Civilization Initiative, which means we need to respect the cultural uniqueness of each society in each country. So I think with these 3 China's global initiatives, I truly believe that it will contribute a lot to the way in which we understand our world, and the way in which we can actually promote, again, back to the start, peace and development and stability.
Just on top of, obviously, this China proposes lots of new initiatives, and at the same time, effectively, China, the Western side, the positioning has always been, if you look at the U.S. Republican presidential debates or whatever, they're always the slogan is always countering China, always suppressing it. It is, the West probably may not have the idea of, shared futures and common prosperity aspect. So, China is acting as a counterbalance by proposing this initiative to the Western side, the Western propaganda. And then obviously in these initiatives, all these talking about negotiation, but obviously negotiation is always a first step to that. We do appreciate that China is acting as a counterbalance with these initiatives and all these things. At the same time, we'll probably the rest of the Asia and South Asia are probably other than the Korea and Japan. Perhaps will probably will be agreeable to the ideas, new proposal, new initiatives by the China. Yeah, so we do appreciate that China is acting as a counterbalance to the West.
Interesting. Yeah, please.
Yeah, just quickly, because these issues are the one that I'm also actually focusing right now. Global Security Initiative, the Initiative on Civilization and Development. I think the three initiatives are very important at this time of this world, no? Precisely because it has three things that it encompasses. First is that win-win cooperation and development is important, and this is embodied in this three initiative. The other one is resolving conflict and dispute should be done in such a way that it's peaceful and diplomatic, and also respecting the territorial integrity of each country who are involved in that. That's security initiative, I think. The other one is the civilizational initiative, which is basically focusing and saying that everyone has their unique culture and distinct culture, and everyone has to respect that. I think these are the three things that's very important in the world right now. If you want to have what you call a peaceful world, and if you want to have that kind of multipolar world. And one more thing about the three initiatives that are being proposed by President Xi is what you call multilateralism. At the end of the day, multilateralism meaning each and every country should cooperate and focus on win-win cooperation rather than conflict, because that's the way forward and that's the future for everyone. That's economic prosperity at the end of the day. So I think that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. While we are talking to one another, new inspirations already jumped out of our minds. And meanwhile, we seem to get to know more about what our counterparts value the most in this beautifully intertwined relationship. It is really a worthwhile conversation with all of you. Before we go, if I could humbly invite one sentence to sum up your ideas given our topic today.
If I'm going back, the one sentence is just the same thing, because China has the longest history. So it will be the culture is all embedded into the ASEAN and ASEAN countries already. Just now talking about the culture, I wasn't inside the conversation at that point of time. But as I say just now, because of that, China leadership at this point of time, especially as the world is at crossroads, is become more important for us to have a shared future.
I think what China is proposing is good, but to me, it's not new. I mean, throughout history, every great society wants to promote that. It's just that now, what we have been used to in the past maybe 50 or 100 years is the narrative from the West, okay? But then we found that, they are hypocrites. They're not doing the things that they claim to be doing. And so I will push them aside and now look for the new player. China is claiming that. Let's subscribe to this new player.
Yeah, maybe we don't realize that 1/4 of global economy is coming from China and ASEAN, which means that 18% from China and 7% from ASEAN. We are big. Maybe we don't realize that we are big enough to voice better improvement in the world, which is currently facing a lot of turbulences and uncertainties. Let's work together and let's voice the righteous thing that we can voice together, because world need our collaboration.
One region and ASEAN and China, I would like to emphasize that whether in China or Thailand, we are the committed to the same goal, peace and harmony. As we often say, China and Thailand are one family. In Chinese, it's 中泰一家亲, and which is not just a slogan, but a goal we strive for, and the future together and be together.
I think that South Asian nations are very sensitive to any competition, to any rising tension between the U.S. and China. in the region. So that's the reason why they are very sensitive and they feel that they are vulnerable to any tensions or to any possibility that they have to taxize in the region. As small and medium power in the region, Vietnam also realizes that it needs to be careful in its relations with both China and the US. I think that China must understand that these nations in the Southeast Asia do not want to taxize. And by sending the message that China does not want these Southeast Asians have to taxize, and it will help ensure the countries in the regions that China is always the friend in the region, and it will make Southeast Asian nations believe in China's initiative in the region, and they will support China's policy more in the future.
Nina from Brunei.
I think embrace to forge friendships that are open and inclusive between ASEAN and China.
Anna from the Philippines.
China and ASEAN are builders of Asian century of economic prosperity and peace.
Kan from China.
In China, there's a saying, 远亲不如近邻, but Southeast Asian countries are our close neighbors, but also our family members. So I believe firmly that China and ASEAN are going to have a shared future, bright future together.
Thank you for all of you for participating in this discussion about China and ASEAN. 2024 is destined to be a turbulent year, and yet with better understanding between China and ASEAN, we'll be able to contribute, hopefully, to the peace and development, to most important topics for common folks in the world today. I'm Tian Wei. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. And thank you, everyone.
Cultural heritage and history are China and ASEAN's shared legacy, the bedrock of peace and security.
It's not just one-way investment from China going to Southeast Asia. We are trying to build a community with a shared future.
Because of that, China leadership at this point of time, especially as the world is at a crossroads, is become more important for us to have a shared future.
Decades of partnership bodes well for stability, a great environment for cooperation and common prosperity. Catch CGTN's special program, China-ASEAN, Embracing a Safe and Shared Future.
Bridges understanding, mutual understanding between countries. The people interaction, people-to-people ties are more stronger.
We're innovative, but we also appreciate the past. We also understand the history between us, and that we want to grow on both of those aspects.
Yo mama, jangan mama marah beta.
Wow.
Dia cuma pegang beta.